Hey, I'm TJ Kastning. I've been a construction recruiter for 13 years, and I know a lot about hiring in the construction space. And one of the most common mistakes that I see interviewers make is what I call the fish doesn't know water problem. And if you will, imagine a couple of fish in a couple of fish tanks arguing or discussing what water is, and that water being the only water that they know necessarily. And so, how this applies to interviewing is a lot of us have worked in specific companies, particularly founders or owners of companies, have worked in one particular context, company, culture, environment, process for most of their career, much of their career. And there are certain patterns in construction that are fairly consistent, right? We've got a pre-construction process all the way to commissioning or turning over the keys. But there is a large degree of unstandardized process that each firm uses to go through and execute the whole planning and build cycle for the project. And we use a lot of the same terminology. And so the problem is that we're interviewing candidates who are coming from, in a sense, a different aquarium, different water, different expectations. And we use a lot of the same language, but we mean different things. And so the potential for miscommunication, misunderstanding is pretty substantial. And what my advice to you is consider that your firm is very unique and think about opportunities to get perspective on how other companies operate, how your values show up in your process, and what's really important to you about how and why your process works the way it does. For example, if you've got a particular process with submittals or change orders, right, or your estimating process, that has been designed and developed unique to you. And so sometimes we see hiring authorities, interviewers who are somewhat naive to this, interviewing for roles, let's say a superintendent role, where they think the superintendent role is fairly consistent across construction. And in some sense, it is, right? You could say that the superintendent is responsible for the building coming out of the ground and maintaining that quality control and that cohesion within the teams. But how they go about that, why they go about that, how they communicate, what the systems that they use, what the expectations are in each organization are radically different. And so one of the best things that you can do as an interviewer is ask a lot of questions about the expectations of the roles that person, superintendent, project manager, estimator, has held in the past. What specifically were you responsible for? How specifically did you do that? And what you are trying to build an image of is how was this person's responsibilities different or similar to our own? And if we're going to hire this person, where can we expect them to naturally fit into our process? Where are we going to need to do training? Where are we going to need to align expectations? Because the big risk is this person comes from another, let's say, well-respected firm, and they do similar work. And we assume that because well-respected firm, good tenure, we liked them, that they're going to come in and they're going to be successful. And what we painfully realize is that company has an entirely different frame of mind, process, expectations for how that role specifically operates. And now we're importing that incompatible mindset, process, behavior, set of expectations to our organization. And it's just going to cause a lot of stress, a lot of pain. It's going to degrade the client experience. So don't take the pedigree of the person for granted. Think about the fish doesn't know water problem and try to align on what exactly do we mean. This also requires a lot of organizational and personal self-awareness about how do our expectations, priorities, goals, personalities get baked into how we operate, how we behave, what are the unwritten rules, why do we operate this way? Because the more self-awareness you have, the more you can recognize that your way of going about solving the problem, making this structure come to reality, is going to be different than other top tier firms that you may be competing with. Hope this is helpful. Thank you.